Greetings, my fellow Mobile Legends enjoyers. Today, Shinmen Takezo, am here to tell you all about this new Marksman Ixia, who is about to come out and be available in the original server this 8th of July.
It's my way or the highway.
Who are you?
You!
No, not me, you.
Yes, I am you!
In this hero review, we'll be going through her skills, her strengths, or weaknesses if she has any, to help you decide if Ixia, who is totally not an Overwatch hero by the way, is worth your time and most especially your hard-earned battle points.
Apagando las luces.
Ixia is a marksman that excels in dealing long-range damage and securing kills. She got great hair and a nice piece of assets. I mean, the floating robots around her that shoot missiles, of course. She specializes in long-range harass, continuous poke, teamfight area burst damage, and a little bit of crowd control. To have a better understanding of what makes Ixia who she is, let's explore her entire skill set one by one. With Ixia's passive, every time you deal damage with basic attack or skills on any enemy, you put a purple floating marker on their sides. When the enemy has two markers, hitting them with a basic attack will trigger extra damage and heal Ixia. This extra damage also do not crit. Although this marker works on every enemy, the markers do not appear on minions, but it still works. You still do bonus damage and get healed when it triggers. Unfortunately though, the passive does not work on towers. So what is good about this passive? Well, first, it allows you to effectively duel the enemy marksman early in the game, because aside from the bonus damage that you do every time you pop the markers on them, you also get healed every time you trigger the passive. So you have a pretty good sustain even when you don't have lifesteal items yet.
Why are you running?
If you're at a disadvantage or are losing the trade for some reason, you can attack any minion or jungle monsters to heal up some HP to sustain yourself in lane using your passive. I'd say it's a pretty balanced passive, that is, until we talk about her other skills. Ixia's skill 1 is a linear thick skill that does double damage if the enemy is hit in the center of the skill, this line in the middle here. And it does less damage if they are hit with the outer area, this space to the left and the right. Enemies hit by this skill, center or sides, will get one stack of your passive as well, meaning you are only 2 basic attacks away from triggering that extra damage and heal. Aside from dealing damage with this skill, you also slow down the enemies you hit by 40%, while you on the other hand will gain a 40% speed boost. I'd say that because of this effect, this is gonna be Ixia's main mobility skill, because it is the only mobility skill she has, which you could use to effectively chase enemies while basic attacking them or when you need to escape. Now, I really don't have anything else to say about this skill aside from it has a longer range than your basic attack. So that makes it a pretty good poking tool in case you want to play it safe, but you also want to chip off the enemy's HP little by little. Now let's talk about Ixia's skill 2. The range of it looks like this. Just like her skill 1, it has a pretty wide range and it can reach further than your basic attack. It is yet another convenient tool for poking or harassing the enemy. But this skill does not only deal damage, it comes with extra effects. After a short delay, enemies that get hit while inside this outer bar will get pulled to the line in the middle and get stunned briefly. This has a great synergy with your skill 1 since you want enemies staying in the middle of your skill 1 so you can do double damage. But that is not all. Hitting enemies really close to you inside this box will knock them back, pull them in the center line, and also stun them once the skill animation ends. So I guess maybe the most optimal way to use this skill is to hit the enemies up close. Before the skill does any damage or CC or pull, it's gonna have this short delay, and the enemies can just simply walk out of that area before the animation ends. Meanwhile, hitting enemies at close range will instantly deal damage and knock them back. And since they're in the middle of the animation of getting knocked back, they won't have time to escape the pull and stun on the outer area of this skill. And lastly, as usual, any enemy you hit with this skill will put a mark of Ixia's passive on them. So that means that if you use both your skill 1 and skill 2 on the enemy before you basic attack them, you get a free trigger of burst damage and heals with the help of your passive.
What the f is this?
And as for Ixia's third, or her ultimate skill, pressing the ult will open up this huge cone in front of her, and she will not be able to move for the entire duration unless you cancel the ultimate. Within this cone, your basic attack and skill can reach anyone who is inside the area. So you can spam your basic attack button and the missiles will hit the enemies, prioritizing heroes first before minions or monsters. While this ultimate is active, every time you do a basic attack, you hit a maximum of 6 enemies simultaneously at the same time. Each basic attack on enemies hit will of course put passive stacks on them, and if you attack 3 times while hitting multiple enemies with this ult, you trigger all those passives at the same time, dealing bonus damage, and you'll get massive heals from all of your targets. And this is how far your ultimate will upgrade and extend your skills during your ult. It's gonna help you a lot if you spam them while doing basic attacks during your ultimate to deal more damage and keep enemies in the kill zone with your crowd control. Now that is a very loaded ultimate, isn't it right, Ricky? But you'll realize that it's not really all that great once the enemies just leave the ultimate area with their dash skills or even just plainly walk out of it. And it doesn't really do a lot of damage in 1 versus 1, especially in the early game, since this skill just extends your range, adds a little more damage when you trigger the passive, while in exchange you become an easy target since you are not allowed to move. It's a good thing though that you can use Flicker during your ultimate, so picking up that battle spell is a no-brainer. It is a fact that this ultimate has got its weaknesses, but it's fantastic in teamfights where you have multiple targets that you can damage and heal from all at once with your passive. And you'll also have teammates who can help keep enemies in your ult area and keep you safe. From what I have seen, it is best to use this ultimate after someone from your team initiates on the enemy team, or when enemies dive your other teammates, not you. Oh, and also, regular crowd controls won't cancel this ult, just like Eve's ult. You just won't be able to spam your attacks for a while you're CC'd. So make sure you cancel the skill by pressing the same button before your enemies cancel you. And that is it about Ixia's skills. Now what about her gameplay and how she feels when I played her? She actually is a pretty balanced marksman. She may not have the dash, but she has speed boost and crowd control built in on her skills. So this should help her a little bit when it comes to chasing down enemies or escaping from them. Her skills might be skill shots, but the animations are pretty fast, so hitting enemies shouldn't be that difficult. And like I've said earlier, in the early game, if you just play around triggering your passive on the enemies, surviving in the gold lane, or even out-damaging the enemy marksman sometimes shouldn't be a huge problem. With enough attack speed on her build, she can definitely dish out a lot of damage, since the faster you attack, the more passive effects you will be triggering. So going with the recommended builds for starters might be the way to go for now, since they mostly focus on increasing your attack speeds. Her ultimate is really great. It's a wide AoE basic attack kind of damage that covers a huge area in teamfights, yeah, all that good stuff. And it's really good at dealing with pesky backliners, enemies trying to defend their tower, and in zoning or keeping the enemies away if your team's currently doing Lord or Turtle. The only slightly bad thing about her that I noticed are mainly about her ultimate. Yes, it is the strongest thing that she has and it can turn the tide of the battle, but it is also the trickiest to use. The problem lies in the fact that Ixia needs to stand still during her ultimate. Just like Eve and Farsa, you are gonna be vulnerable to attacks from enemies that would go around you. But unlike them, you can't turn into a bird to escape and you don't have a thick shield. During your ultimate, with no teammates to help you, enemies with dash can just easily move out since you don't have a hard crowd control. And if you're just dealing with 1 or 2 heroes, like let's say in the early game, using your ultimate might not be worth it since the fewer the targets, the less damage you output and less heals you gain from your passive. But make no mistake, when the mid to late game kicks in and everyone is grouping up, that is where Ixia truly shines. With her high damage passive and the slow and stun that she has on her skills, she can disrupt enemies while also be the one dealing most of the damage. And her ultimate is the kind of skill that when used properly and at the right time in a team fight can be a game changer and wipe out the entire enemy team. You just have to be patient and wait for everyone else to start fighting before you use your extinction-causing ultimate. Now I can't really recommend any build since she just came out, but attack speed I feel is a must on her to deal more damage, especially with your basic attack during your ultimate. Flicker is gonna be a lifesaver when you need to reposition yourself since she really has no dash skills. For emblems, getting the Marksman set should benefit her kit quite nicely, along with additional movement speed talents, discount, and maybe weakness finder so you can slow enemies down with your basic attacks even during your ultimate. Overall, I think Ixia offers a balanced playstyle of dealing damage to your enemies with both basic attacks and skills. But I don't think that she'll be replacing any of these marksmen anytime soon. I rate this hero League of Overwatch out of 10. So again, my name is Shinmen Takezo. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments down below if Ixia is gonna be your next marksman, what you think about her, if you think she's good, if you think she's bad, or if you think that you're about to main her. Stay tuned for more hero reviews like this in the future before heroes come out from the advanced server to the original server. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.